Do you truly know who you are? Or have you been living as the version that others shape for you? That's not just a philosophical question. It's the doorway into something Carl Jung called the discovery of the true self. And if you're watching this, chances are you felt it, that quiet ache, that whisper in your heart asking, is this really me? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what we're about to uncover could shift the way you see yourself forever. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, because we're diving deep into Jung's map for the empathic soul, and you won't want to miss the next chapters in this journey. Now, for empaths, people who feel deeply, who notice the emotions of others like invisible ripples in the air, life often becomes a performance. You become the caretaker, the peacemaker, the listener, the one who sacrifices your own needs so others can be comfortable. But have you ever stopped to ask, beneath all these roles, who are you really? Carl Jung believed most people spend their lives wearing a mask, what he called the persona. This mask is not always bad. It helps us fit into society, to play our part in families, jobs, and communities. But the danger comes when the mask becomes glued to our face, and we start confusing it with who we truly are. Imagine always saying yes when your soul is screaming no. Imagine smiling when you're breaking inside. That's not authenticity. That's survival. Jung warned us. The persona is a compromise between the individual and society, but it should never replace the individual. And yet, many empaths let the persona consume them until they forget what their own desires, boundaries, and truths feel like. If this is striking a chord, keep watching, because in the next part we'll pull back that mask and uncover what lies beneath. Remember, hit that subscribe button, because what Jung reveals next about the wounded child within you may explain why you've been carrying everyone else's pain but your own. Many empaths don't just wake up one day and realize they can feel everything around them. Their sensitivity often has roots much deeper, woven into the earliest years of their lives. Carl Jung believed that our psyche carries what he called complexes, patterns of thought, and emotion built around old wounds. These complexes form when certain experiences repeat so often or carry such an emotional charge that they shape the way we see ourselves and others for decades to come. For many empaths, childhood wasn't about freedom, but about survival. Imagine a child growing up in a house where anger erupted like storms, or silence pressed down like a heavy fog. That child learns quickly. If I can read the room, if I can sense what's coming before it happens, maybe I can protect myself, or maybe I can protect the people I love. Sensitivity becomes a shield. Empathy becomes a survival skill. And while it works in childhood, it also leaves a mark. As that child grows into an adult, the gift becomes a burden. Instead of reading emotions to stay safe, they start reading emotions to keep relationships alive, to avoid conflict, to keep everyone comfortable, even at the cost of their own peace. Jung would say the complex is still alive. The wounded child still whispers, if you're not needed, you'll disappear. This is why so many empaths confuse being needed with being known. They mistake the role of caretaker for true love. They mistake being indispensable for being seen. But beneath that lies the ache of invisibility, the sense that no one has ever really known them. So let me ask you, are you still living as that child who kept the peace, who carried everyone else's emotions just to feel safe? Or are you ready to step into the adult who can finally choose differently? Stay with me, because what we explore next, Jung's idea of the shadow, will show you that even the parts of yourself you've tried to hide may actually be the keys to your freedom. And if you haven't yet, subscribe now, because the journey we're on together is about peeling back every layer until your true self shines through. Carl Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. What he called the shadow isn't a monster hiding under your bed. It's the hidden, repressed parts of yourself that you've pushed away because they didn't feel safe, or they didn't fit the image you thought others wanted from you. For empaths, the shadow often holds emotions they've been taught to fear: anger, selfishness, desire, even the simple right to set boundaries. Think about it. How many times have you swallowed your irritation just to avoid disappointing someone? How many times have you said yes, while inside you were screaming no? Those swallowed words, those silenced feelings don't disappear. They slip into the shadow, waiting for the day you finally notice them. The reason many empaths fear their shadow is because they've been trained to equate these parts with being bad. If I say no, I'm selfish. If I feel anger, I'm unkind. If I want something for myself, I'm greedy. But Jung would argue the opposite. These parts are not your enemies. They're simply energies that, when denied, become destructive, but when integrated, become powerful allies. So how do you begin meeting your shadow? Start with awareness. Notice when resentment creeps in. Resentment is often the shadow's way of knocking on your door. Journal about moments that trigger you, not to judge yourself, but to ask what part of me is trying to speak here. Over time, you'll begin to see patterns, parts of yourself you've silenced for years, waiting to be heard. Here's the truth. Your shadow isn't here to ruin you. It's here to restore you. It holds the strength you've disowned, the boundaries you've buried, the desires that can guide you. Integrating the shadow doesn't make you less empathic. It makes you more whole. And wholeness is what Jung believed was the real goal of life. So I'll ask you this. What have you been hiding in your shadow? And are you ready to let it step into the light? Stay with me, because in the next part, we'll explore Jung's path of individuation, the process of weaving together all your pieces into the person you were always meant to be. And don't forget to subscribe, because you want to keep walking this path with me until the very end. Carl Jung believed the greatest task of our lives is what he called individuation. It sounds complex, but in simple words, it means this: becoming whole, not perfect. It's not about polishing yourself into some flawless being. It's about gathering up every part of who you are, even the ones you've tried to ignore, and bringing them together into one true self. Jung described individuation as a journey. It begins when we realize the mask, the persona we've been wearing is not our entire identity. We start to peel it back. Then comes a shadow, the parts of ourselves we've pushed away. We face it, learn from it, and slowly begin to integrate it. After that, we meet deeper aspects of our psyche, what Jung called the anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies that need balance. And finally, through all these steps, we arrive at the self, the center of who we truly are. Persona, shadow, anima / animus, self. That is Jung's map. For empaths, individuation is especially powerful. It's about balancing giving with receiving. It's learning that compassion means nothing if it leaves you empty. It's remembering that self-respect is just as sacred as kindness. Individuation whispers, you are not here only to serve. You are also here to live. Imagine someone who has spent their whole life saying yes. Every request, every favor, every burden, they take it on. They feel guilty at the mere thought of refusing. But then, one day, they gather the courage to say no. At first, the guilt crashes in, loud and heavy. But over time, that no becomes freedom. They realize that by protecting their own energy, they actually have more to give. They discover balance. And for the first time, they feel whole. That's individuation in action. Not rejecting empathy, but grounding it in strength. Not abandoning kindness, but pairing it with clarity. It's a return to the self you were born to be before the world told you who to become. So let me ask you, are you ready to begin your own journey of individuation? Because in the next step, we'll explore the dance between your inner energies, the anima and animus, that shape how you love, create, and stand in your own power. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this map to your true self. Jung believed that within every man lives an inner feminine, which he called the anima, and within every woman lives an inner masculine, the animus. Today, we might understand this as the balance of inner energies, softness and strength, intuition and logic, receptivity and assertiveness. Wholeness comes not from rejecting one side, but from learning to hold both. For empaths, this teaching is especially important. Many empaths lean heavily into the soft side of their energy, caring, yielding, receptive, endlessly forgiving. While these qualities are beautiful, they can also create imbalance when they aren't balanced by their opposite. Growth for many empaths means strengthening the other side. The willingness to be assertive, to set boundaries, to say no, to think logically when emotions become overwhelming, and to stand independently without always leaning on others for validation. And the reverse is also true. For For those who grew up hiding their softness, perhaps becoming overly tough, rational, or controlling, the path to wholeness lies in rediscovering empathy, gentleness, and vulnerability. Jung taught that the goal isn't to choose one or the other, but to integrate both. Think about it like this. If you only live from your softness, people may take advantage of you. If you only live from your toughness, you may end up isolated and disconnected. But when the two energies work together, you become balanced. You can open your heart without being walked on. You can stand tall without closing yourself off. Jung's wisdom reminds us that true strength is not found in extremes. It's found in integration. Wholeness doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means becoming all of yourself. So ask yourself, which side of your energy have you been over-identifying with? And are you ready to embrace its opposite? Stay with me, because in the next part we'll look at the signs that you are moving closer to your true self. Signs that your journey of individuation is already unfolding. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so you can continue walking this path with me to the very end. How do you know when you're finally walking the path back to your true self? Jung didn't give us a checklist, but if you're an empath, there are certain markers that reveal you're moving closer to wholeness. The first is this. You can say no without drowning in guilt. At first, that no might feel heavy, even selfish. But over time, you notice that each no makes space for a deeper yes. The yes to yourself, your energy, your peace. The second sign is peace in solitude. Instead of feeling empty or abandoned when you're alone, you begin to notice a calm presence. Your own company feels enough. Solitude becomes a friend, not a punishment. Another marker is when you allow others to carry their own burdens. As an empath, you've likely spent years absorbing everyone's struggles. But the moment you stop rushing in to fix everything, you realize something powerful. Others are capable of carrying their own weight. And by stepping back, you give them the dignity of growth. You also stop craving constant validation. Instead of anxiously waiting for someone to notice your efforts, you rest in the quiet confidence of your own choices. Approval no longer defines you. And perhaps most beautifully, you begin to feel both compassion and strength at the same time. You can open your heart without letting people trample it. You can care without losing yourself. Let me give you a simple example. I once heard the story of a woman who spent decades saying yes to every request, baking for events, volunteering for projects, staying late at work. People praised her endlessly, but inside, she felt invisible. One day, she finally said no to a favor she didn't want to do. She braced for rejection. But instead of her world collapsing, nothing happened. In fact, she felt lighter, freer. That one moment showed her that her value didn't depend on endless pleasing. It was the beginning of her freedom. So if you've noticed these shifts in your own life, less guilt, more peace, stronger boundaries, you are already on the path to your true self. And the journey doesn't end here. Stay with me, because what comes next is learning to live authentically every single day. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time, because this journey of self-discovery is only getting deeper. What does it mean to live from your true self, not just in theory, but in the small choices of everyday life? For many empaths, this is the most difficult step. There's a quiet fear inside. If I stop pleasing others, will I become cold? Will I lose the warmth that makes me who I am? But the reality is very different. When you stop living for others' expectations, you don't become harsh. You become clearer. You don't become less magnetic. You actually draw people in with a new kind of presence. Living authentically means speaking your truth kindly, instead of swallowing your words. It means setting limits without apology, because you realize that boundaries are not walls. They are bridges that protect both you and your relationships. It means pursuing joy without needing to justify it, no longer waiting for permission to do the things that light you up. Carl Jung reminded us again and again that individuation, the process of becoming who you really are, is not about perfection. It's not about erasing your flaws or pretending to be enlightened every moment. It's about integration. It's about bringing together every part of yourself. Your kindness and your anger, your compassion and your strength, your softness and your independence, and letting them exist in harmony. When you live authentically, life feels lighter. You no longer carry the weight of performing for others. You stop second-guessing every choice. Instead, you move through the world with a quiet confidence, knowing you are enough as you are. And that is magnetic. It draws the right people toward you while gently filtering out those who are only interested in your mask. So ask yourself, are you ready to live this way, not as the version others shaped, but as the whole self you were always meant to be? Stay with me until the very end, because in the conclusion, we'll bring everything together. And you'll see why Jung called becoming your true self the greatest privilege of a lifetime. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe, because this journey doesn't end here. Being empathic has never been a weakness. It is not fragility, not a flaw, and certainly not something to be fixed. It is evidence of your survival, of your strength, of how you learn to feel deeply in a world that often rewarded numbness. Many empaths were once children who were not allowed to be selfish, who had to tune into everyone else's needs just to stay safe, loved, or accepted. But now, as an adult, you can reclaim what was once denied: the right to exist fully, the right to honor your own needs, the right to be whole. So the question becomes, are you still living as that silenced child, always anticipating, always bending, always shrinking? Or are you ready to step into the whole adult you were meant to become? An adult who feels, who speaks, who chooses without apology. Carl Jung said it best: the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege is yours, and it does not mean abandoning compassion. It does not mean becoming selfish in the shallow sense. It means finally extending to yourself the same kindness, patience, and love you have so freely given to others. This journey is not about discarding your empathic soul, but about protecting it, nourishing it, and allowing it to shine without being dimmed. If you take one thing from Jung's wisdom, let it be this: your sensitivity is your power, your wholeness is your gift, and your true self is waiting patiently for you to return home.